of myth about these assassins, because after all, they were a secret sect, you see, and because of this, there have been a lot of, as I said, myth about their life and their style of behavior and their political activities and their assassinations, which they actually made those assassinations. You know, for example, Nizam al-Mulk, which is one of the greatest viziers in the whole Islamic world of the 4th century, he was assassinated by these people. And even the names of the people who were assassinated are now in books of history. So it is no secret about this particular way and particular action that they did. But how they did it and what was in their mind and how they were trained in order to do it, and where from did they bring their courage in order to do it, and their camps and so on and so forth. So all these are, very cloudy. We do not know much about them, and because of this cloudiness, as I said, a lot of myth has been written about them. So yes, you are right. Actually, you can read about them that they were promised to be rewarded the heavens, or perhaps they were dragged, or as I said, used some grass and so on. And in their state of mind, they thought that they were already in heavens and so on. But they were originally a political sect, of course, based on a particular reading of religion, of Shiism. They were a sect of Shiis. And in one of their main teachings was that the day of resurrection has come. Okay, now we are living as if after our death. Now we are living in the resurrection time. And because of that, all Sharia is over. We are not as Ismailis to observe none of the Sharia rules, to pray, to fast, and all that. So this is documented. This we know about it. And then in terms of the political activities, of course, they were very, very bitterly against the Khilafat of the time. And so they were very decided to assassinate the rulers, the Khalif and the kings and so on and so forth. And as we know, even the Khalif of the time, of the 5th century, he had Ghazali to write a lengthy dissertation against this Batinis or Ismailis or the esoteric sect, and he wrote. And of course he didn't like it later on, but that was what they decided, and they had Ghazali to do it because it was a necessity of the time. So they made these assassinations, but of course there are some misgivings about the name itself. As I said, since they were called Hashashin, which means the users of the grass. Hashashin is the users of the grass. So in Western vocabulary or rendering, it became assassin, okay, and then the term assassination, murdering and things. But there is another theory about the root and the origin of the name. You see, there were different rankings among the preachers of these so-called assassins. You see, the lowest, I think, was Da'i, which means the simple preacher, and then the highest of them was Asas, which means the foundation. Okay. Now, there is another theory that because of this Asas, which means the foundation, and which is a rank in the preachers of that sect, they were called assassins. Means the people who believed in Asas, in the foundation, and they had such a structure and such a hegemony in their ranking of their preachers. So there are two theories altogether, but anyway, this is the famous one, that the word assassin comes from the Hashashin. And of course the story was very alive at the time of the Rumi, you see, because Rumi was living in the 7th century, and these assassins were very active in 5th century, in 6th century, and even well into the 7th century. So, and the Fatimid rule in Egypt and elsewhere, they were actually the Ismailis or the assassins, if you like. And at the time, Rumi's time was the time of the invasions of Mongols to Iran and many other Islamic countries. And it was only Egypt that was immune from their invasion. And actually, they were actually halted and stopped by the Egyptians and by the Mamluks at the time. So Rumi was living in the Byzantine, today's Turkey. So he had an eye on the Fatimid rule in Egypt. And since, the Baghdad Khilafat was actually destroyed by the Mongols, Rumi wished the Fatimid rule to flourish, the assassins, according to him. And all this actually comes into what he says and what he actually wishes about the assassins in his poetry. When he says, "Manka Ismailiyan bihazar," he actually has in front of his eyes the invasion of the Mongols, the Egypt in which the Fatimid rule was flourishing, and the assassins, i.e., and also, of course, their courage in assassinating, if you like, and in sacrificing themselves, because their assassination was really a sacrificial, or if you like, a suicidal act. They went, well into the heart of the army of the enemy, and they did what they did very courageously and very cleverly. So for Rumi, it was not the assassination that he liked, but the courage that was associated with it.
How connected do you find Rumi's notion about the perfect entities or the divine traits with the Platonic heritage of abstract universes which are perfect?
Well, no doubt, Rumi was under the influence of Platonic or Neo-Platonic ideas. There are, of course, some historians who say that Rumi's conception of world, of supernatural world, and so on, all are colored by Neoplatonic ideas. Maybe I do not share their ideas, but I cannot avoid actually seeing some of these notions in his writings, in his poetry, especially when he says that the whole world is shadow of a super world. So he said this in very clearly, that مور بر بالا پران و سایه‌اش می‌تابد بر خاک. A bird is flying over our head, and the shadow of the bird is moving on the earth. So the shadow of the bird which is moving or flying on the earth is this material, corporeal universe, and the bird itself, of course, is the supernatural entities which live elsewhere. And the shadowiness of the world also, is taken from the story of the cave in Plato and many other places. Islamic mysticism, of course, has got some gives and takes with Neoplatonism. So this is, I think, for sure. And with Buddhism to some extent, you see. And don't forget that Rumi lived in Afghanistan, in Balkh, where Buddhists were there. So they had their own temples, and no doubt he himself and his father and others were in contact with them. So they took some ideas from them, and you can actually put your finger sometimes clearly in his books. The world of ideas are like this, and ideas are traveling, and they meet each other, you see, and so Rumi was no exception. But as I said, when it comes to love and some other concepts, I think Rumi is very original, and speaks his experience to us. And though it might be similar to some other ideas elsewhere. But anyway, yes, Neoplatonism played a role in Islamic mysticism, no doubt, even in Islamic philosophy.
In what way, I missed your first lecture, I'm not sure whether you explained about how Shams was an inspiration to Rumi, or are you going to